So again, welcome guys. Like I was saying, I never went to these things, which was not to my benefit. That I hunkered down, which to me was a sign, we need motherhood in the making. I needed motherhood in the making. So I really do appreciate you coming out of your lives and taking time out to come and take part in this and come together. I really do value so much your participation in the community. It means so much to me. It means so much to me on a personal level to see women, as a mother, as a fellow mother, like women coming together and sharing space authentically. So thanks, I really appreciate it. A few things, a little housekeeping before we begin. I want to ask everyone to put your phones on silent, so if you haven't done that already. Also, what we say in this room stays in the room. Generally, when we see each other out in public and we say hi to each other, sababa. But when we meet mutual friends, we don't share each other's information. Feel free to talk about your own experiences, but the experiences of others stays here, right? So we can all feel safe to share here. Today, what are we going to do? Forgive me for reading. Oh my God, I love this part. We're going to talk about the common parenting struggles. You guys remember the form that I asked you to fill out? Who did not fill out that form? That's fine. You're not in trouble. I'm just curious. That's fine. It's good for me to know because I'm curious to know how it resonates with you. Because I do believe that these are common struggles that we all share, that we don't talk about. We kind of know in theory that everybody struggles with, but I want to name it. I want to say, this is it, ladies. This is motherhood. This is life with kids. It's real. It's real. It's not, it's not survival. It's let's own it. Let's be with it. Let's face it and let's deal with it. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about what's really going on for us when our kids push our buttons. We're going to workshop it. I've given you guys handouts, and we're going to work through it together so that you come out with a little bit more clarity about your struggle, and maybe some clarity about where you need to go, what you need to do about it. And of course, I'm here and the community is here. I'm also going to tell you about a program that I'm running, really short, a bit of information about a program that's coming up in November, if it interests you. So, I'm going to read to you the list of struggles, okay? And this is important that I actually get on camera. Like, this is important to be in the promo video. I want to feel more confident, one mother says, okay? And as you hear this, just sort of listen with your ears, but listen with your body. Like, listen with yourself. Like, digest it for a second. I want to feel more confident. I want to get closer to what I see as a more ideal parent. I'd like to know how to remain calm while parenting children with strong emotions. I want to control my anger. I want to get my kids to listen without yelling. I want to be more present with my kids. I want to understand my kids' behavior. How do I connect to a kid who really pushes my buttons and behaves so badly? I want to learn how to meet my kids' individual needs. I want to know how to juggle all of my kids all at once. I want to know how to handle sibling rivalry when they hit each other and hurt each other. I want to know how to handle it when my kids hit and hurt me. I want to be more patient, understanding, and caring, especially when my kids act up. So for those who did not fill out the form, was there anything there that was missing for you, out of curiosity? It's not a test.
I mean, I don't remember if I filled out the form. My world has been a whirlwind. But one of my children needs more attention than the others, and the challenge for me, especially when you go to certain meetings and they're like, well, what have you been doing all this time if you haven't been doing A, B, C, and D? Mm-hmm. So not really the guilt, but sort of the, how can I possibly do all of the things at once and give the kid what they need and give myself what I need and have to defend my choices for all.
Right.
So it's like that.
Which brings me back to, how do I feel like a confident parent? How do I feel like I'm doing a good enough job? How do I feel like this is good enough? That this is good enough, that I'm not deficient, that I'm not letting my kids down. How do I feel confident? To me, that's what's confident. So those who missed it, hi, have a seat, and if you need, there's a worksheet, and hi, there's a worksheet and pens up there in the corner. So for those who didn't fill out the sheet, just sussing it out here. Was there something that was missing? Like, you're like, oh no, it didn't cover something for me. Or were there in fact things that resonated with you?
A lot of what you said did resonate. I'll just add on to what I kind of heard Rachel say. Like, when there is one child that has more needs than other children, it's not just the confidence. It's also like,
What do I do?
how do you make that fair? How do you give the one without all the others presenting?
Right.
How do you?
Right. So I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna run with something that I was gonna leave at the end, but I'm gonna run with it. And I did say this in the email that I sent out, that I was going to talk about 4 basic things about parenting. Okay, if you take anything away from this, let it be this. Okay, from this workshop. And I'm obviously going to take my notes. So here's the first thing. Whenever I struggle, I believe it falls under one of these 4 categories. And I'm going to do this before we jump in and actually get into the workshop. The first is keeping calm. Just keeping my S together. I'm censoring it here. I'm a lot more wordy at home. Keeping it together. Like, how do I just stay calm? I'm just thinking about an interaction this morning. Just how do I just stay calm? That's it. Just how do I control? How do I not get so angry? How do I not lose it? How do I not react? So somewhere my struggle is going to fall into that category. Big emotions, mine and my kids. How do I handle that? How do I manage that? How do I recognize them, acknowledge them, understand them? How do I respond to them? How do I tolerate them? And boundaries, discipline. In the group, in the community, here, in the forum, it always comes under, not always, but it will come under boundaries. How do I set boundaries? Either it's discipline, is it punishment, is it consequences? How do I handle this? How do I set boundaries here? And connection. How do I form a connection? How do I nurture something loving and lasting and meaningful with my kid in light of this chaos? And so any struggle we have is going to come under these 4 categories. And that really does, that colors motherhood in the making, that colors the gisha, the approach of motherhood in the making, that's really what I speak to. That's how I conceptualize our issues. And I think it's important that you guys know that too, just to offer you clarity. Like this, oh yeah, where does this land? Where is this? Oh yeah, this is real. Ultimately so that I can walk away and say, this is real. And I can validate myself. Because often in our struggles, we don't think we're valid. Because we're saying that we're not good enough, that there's something wrong with me for struggling. No, there isn't. This struggle is real. You know why? Because Leva says so. Okay. I'm going to take this. Is anyone sitting here? There's a contraption there that's making me nervous. Okay, so let's get in. Let me just check my notes, make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, no, I'm not. Okay, so let's dive in. We're going to fill out this sheet together. And I actually thought this morning, you know what, I'm going to do this along with you guys and give you, if need be, to enrich in the learning, the understanding. I'll give you an example from my life this morning because it's always a morning. So the first thing I'm going to ask you guys to do is take a minute and consider a recent example of one of your biggest parenting struggles and write down what happened. And try to be detailed here. Try to be as detailed as possible because really what we want to do is I'm going to speak for you, I want to re-invoke in myself the experience. Not that it happened there or in the past, but as if it's happening right now. This is what's happening. And in fact, I would encourage you to even write it in present tense. So I would say, and I'm doing this with you in vivo, sort of in the moment, so you see how it goes. Like I have to decide where to start. Where did it really start? And that's important. Notice that. Like, where do I start this story? Where does this story begin? For me, where did this story begin? It didn't just start in this moment, but I have to choose a spot. So I come to my daughter's room, and she's like, "Why didn't you wake me up? Why didn't you wake me?" I never wake her up. I never wake her up. It's not something she's needed from me. This morning, she needed to be woken up. Something was going on for her. Why didn't you wake me up? It's really important here that you just point out behaviors. So you're just doing verbs. Sarah says, "Why didn't you wake me up?" I say, "I don't know, you got to get up." She's angry at me. I'll throw in an emotion word there. She's angry, she's yelling at me, she's feeling frustrated, and I leave the room. I try to help her. It doesn't have to be Like in all these actions, there's feelings. And we're just separating them out here. As you can tell, as I'm saying it, like, oh, there's this anger, and then this happens, and that's fine. If you put it in there, there's no mistakes here. This is what Brené Brown calls a shitty first draft. Okay, there's no rules here. So, what happened? And just noticing just what happened. She gets mad at me. I get mad at her back. I storm out. She's late for the bus. She's scrambling to find a skirt. She's blaming me. These are verbs. It's not really chronological. A lot happened in between that. A lot of feelings were coming up for me too. A lot was going on in my mind. But just let's keep to the verbs just as a way of teasing it out. Go ahead. There are a lot of Alanas in this room. I almost want to say, who's not Ilana? Yeah, it's nice. What's your name? I've met you before. Have I met you before? Oh, okay. Nice to meet you. What's your family name? Oh, hi. Okay. Good to see you.
You want to just do the same?
Yeah. Yeah. When you're done, you look up. I'll know you're done, and we'll move on.
Somebody told me after she had met a phone from this, they've been through this for a long time, they found it face to face, like I found them in the shaman. The goof. Nachon. Nachon. That's how it feels when you meet someone from Facebook. It's like, oh, here's the goof. Yeah. Nachon. It says a lot about what the goof. Yeah. I know, I haven't seen my family in the States for years. I'm like, Ima, it's like, just a hug. Like, that, you can't get on the phone on FaceTime, no.
Yeah, nachon. That's painful and true. Who needs more time? Just raise your hand quickly so I just see. Awesome, no worries. I don't think I turned my ringer off. I'm hearing the blips. Oh, that's my phone. Ah.
We're just doing the first one.
Yeah. If you're still writing, keep writing. I don't think I gave you great guidance here now that I look at this. You probably in the first one described your kid's behavior. If you didn't, if you didn't really hash it out, then take a minute now for number 2 and describe what your kid was doing. And notice here what feelings come up for you. Really important. Just pay attention. Like she was yelling at me and she was blaming me, and noticing the thoughts that go through my mind and noticing the feelings that go through my mind. The thoughts means sort of those voices, not delusions, but just the voices in your head, you know? The judgments. The judgments.
Different than step 1.
It's not. But But
Space to elaborate.
right, you can elaborate. Thank you. So elaborate. If you didn't really elaborate, and actually use number 2 as an opportunity to really get in and start to pay attention to what's coming up for me. Like, I don't know about you. I feel my emotions really strongly, which helps because generally what I help people do is feel their emotions strongly, give them permission to feel their emotions strongly. And I want to encourage you here to start to pay attention and notice, if not the emotions necessarily, the thoughts, the judgments. You know, what do I think? And we're going to flesh that out, but just notice them for now as I write out what she did. And for me, she was yelling at me. She was blaming me. That's what really got me. What is it about this interaction, that the behavior in this interaction that really gets under my skin? Try to pinpoint that here.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
How is this going to stay in the room with a video? Like, how is everything we say going to stay in the room with a video?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, sorry. It's not, it's awful. You make a really good point. And you have to use your discretion because it is live. I apologize. You're right. And I should have been more, what's the word, transparent about that. If you're on the side and you're not in the film, then your voice is not you're not identifiable.
Just wondering.
Yes.
Where
Yeah.
you go.
I actually have to turn that off. And my kid's teacher. Damn rabbits! It's the rabbits. My daughter, I think, is allergic to rabbits. Yeah, so if you feel like, if you're sitting here and you're like, you know what, I really want to share, and you're feeling self-conscious, then I'm not saying get over there, I'm saying I welcome you to move to the side so that you feel safer to share.
I'm good. I just wanted
Yeah?
to know.
Yeah. There's a Facebook Live, and it's being recorded. Asaf is recording it. He's going to be editing it out, and what you're saying isn't going to be in the
In the video.
yeah, in the Facebook Live. You're there,
Okay.
but you're not. And I'm sorry. And you know what? I'm really glad you said something. Thank you, because I can say that to everybody. If you're wondering, there's a Facebook Live. Hi. So if you don't want to be identified, you can at any time move over. Feel free, stand up. You know, like it's your body, it's your space, it's your. Asaf's going to edit it. You're in the promo video that he's going to edit. No one's voices are going to be. It's all me. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for asking. So yeah. Okay. Are we here? Are we on number 2? Anyone need some time? We are pinpointing the actual behavior, the action that really gets under my skin. Like, what is it that my kid really is doing? Is she yelling at me in that high-pitched voice that gets under my skin? Is she saying something? Is he yelling in a high-pitched voice that gets under my skin? Is she hitting me? I have 3 daughters and a son. That's why I usually say she. It could be a boy, obviously. My son also does stuff to piss me off. Less, because he's the 4th. He got lucky. 4th time lucky. So that's what we're doing in number 2. Does anyone need more time for number 2? Hi, Buzzy. Sorry. No? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to go to number 3. When you revisit and envision your kid's behavior, which we've been doing, right? In general, the general incident, I didn't wake up my kid. She freaked out. She was running amok, trying to find her skirt. Trying to find her skirts and whatever. Asaf, זה מפריע? הקוביות? What's that?
I said that usually you can.
Okay. That's the general. Specifically, she's blaming me. She's blaming me. It's your fault, Ima. It's your fault that this is happening. I don't have a skirt, and it's your fault. And I woke up late, and it's your fault. And I'm stressed out, and it's your fault. Now that I've pinpointed that, right? Everyone's pinpointed that? If you're struggling, let me know. I'll help you out. I'll walk through it. Everyone's good? Okay, nobody move. Okay, great. The givu, now we're gonna. What's that? Yes.
What I'm working on is a little bit different because it's getting the kids out the door in the morning.
Okay.
And they're not really doing anything. It's
Okay.
They're not doing.
Great. Very good. So it's the inaction.
Yeah.
It's the inaction, that they're not doing anything. Often when I describe discipline, I say getting your kids to stop doing what they shouldn't be doing and start doing what they should be doing. So that's a great example. So the inactivity, that they're the unresponsiveness, they're not responding to me.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
That's good. And when you say that, I also have these like, oh, reactions. Yeah, yep. So take that, and now feel it. And in number 3, I want you to describe and really ad-lib this. Throw it out, brainstorm it, okay? There's no getting it right. Throw it out onto the page. And I'm going to walk you through this and give you some guidance here about what I was thinking and what I was feeling. And you can go back to number 2 and I'll say to myself, when Chayasara blames me, I think it's not PG what I think. It's like, and it can be pretty strong. I want to give you permission to notice the intensity of your thoughts and your judgments. Notice your resistance to that intensity. We're all different. I've met a lot of women, and some women feel things very intensely. Some women have, there's more aggression, there's more rage, and some less. And that's all okay. But I want to invite you to, this is your paper. I'm not going to ask you to share anything you don't want to share. This is yours. And what am I feeling? What am I thinking? And it helps sometimes to go with the thinking, because that's usually our first. Different people are different. Some people go right to the feeling words. I have thought, I hate you. I hate you. Thank you. Thank you for that validation, Laura. Yes, I hate you. And that's strong. And the important part about naming that is that associated with that are emotions. And when I talk about emotions, teaching moment here, when I talk about emotions, I'm not talking about the words we use to describe the emotions. Those are called feelings. I'm talking about the base primitive reactions that I have to threat. And it's hard to wrap our head around it, but sometimes our children can threaten us. We can be threatened by them. Not only because their behavior in and of itself can be threatening, like throwing blocks at your face, but that it can invoke in me a implicit memory. That means a memory that's not in my conscious awareness, that I have in relationships, in bonded relationships. That now I'm the parent, but I was also the child once. And it gets a little convoluted here, and I'm going to save this for the program, but it's important to just note that the feelings that we feel are, the emotions that we feel can be strong, can be intense, and they can invoke in us a lot of guilt and shame, so that we don't allow ourselves. And so I want to give you permission to notice the emotion. When we name it, we call it anger, we call it rage, we call it sadness. That's a feeling. That's a feeling. And you can look at different approaches to this. It's, you can call it syntax, but it's important that I delineate between an emotion and a feeling, because it's important to know that in our relationships with our children, things can get very base, very primitive, sometimes immature. And I don't mean in a judgmental way immature. I mean, sometimes there are parts of me that are immature. There is a child inside of me. And sometimes the child inside of me is reacting. And I need to know that so that I can be conscious about how I'm going to respond. I'm not trying to control it. I'm just trying to notice it. I'm trying to name it. So when Chayasara says, this is your fault, it's your responsibility, you didn't wake me up, I think, I hate you. And I'm feeling, I have to be honest, I've worked through this, so I have to go back. What do I feel? I felt, I don't love you. I don't want you. That's what I think she's saying to me. You're not good enough. You messed up. I'm like this because you did it. You know who used to say that to me? Guess. Yes. And so then the feeling, I call it sadness, but the emotion that comes up for me, and I'm showing it to you, I'm sharing it with you, is deep. It's in here. It's in my body. It's deep sadness. I'm okay with it, so I'm sharing it with you. I'm okay with it, and I want to demonstrate it for you. It's deep sadness. And it's important that I know that, so that I can choose to be the mother I want to be, so that I can treat her differently. And I can say, it's okay. You're allowed to be mad at me. You can't speak to me this way. Or I can say to her, which I did, how can I help you? How can I help you? So that I can feel my strong emotion, that sadness, that pain, and I can contain it, I can tolerate it, I can own it, and I don't have to put it out on her. Because you know who did that? My mother. She took her feelings from her mother, and she put it out on me. She didn't know she was doing it. She didn't mean to do it. She wasn't intentional or malicious in any way. I forgive her. I understand her. I've worked through that. And, I can be an adult now. I can make conscious choices as a mother to my children. And that's what it's about, and that's what we're here for. So I'm, yeah, go ahead.
Can you just give us the age of your daughter?
Sure. Chaisar is 9, but when Shifra, my oldest, was an infant, I remember her being an infant and rocking her and having very similar reactions. She was the inspiration. She was my inspiration because that's what made me a mother. So even, Julie, I'm hearing your baby and I'm thinking about this exercise. Even if you have an infant, Chaisar is 9, my oldest is 12. Hold on, ladies. Hold on. And I see now more and more how this understanding and the skills, without sounding arrogant, that I've developed. And unfortunately, I've had to develop them for myself. I had to do them for myself partially because I'm just an independent kind of person. I like to do things myself. Even as a child, my mom would say, self. I would always say, I want to do it myself. That's just my personality. Piecing it together, figuring it out for myself, it's really still applicable for a 12-year-old as much as it is for an infant. Being aware of myself, knowing what's coming up for me, being conscious of that, so that I can be conscious in my interactions with my kids, so that I can separate my emotions from theirs, so that I can tolerate my own, and I can help them manage theirs. Like in a fight, they say, keep it clean. Like in a boxing match, keep it clean. Let's keep it clean. We're going to quarrel. That's what relationships are about. We're going to have battles of will. We're people. This is a relationship. Yes?
This is tangential, let me know, but I feel like asking how can I help you is a good question, but how do you kind of give I don't think that a lot of kids have the capacity to understand.
Yeah, totally. You know what? It was that, or I lose my shit, or I call her, or I become my mother. It was more for me, for sure. She's not thinking. You're absolutely right, and good for you. She's not in a conscious place. She's in a reactive space. She's in a highly emotional space. She can't be conscious. Nachon. So I'm okay with that, and my job is to help her, and to help her not to escalate the reaction that she's having, the emotional reaction.
You're trying to help her, and you're not just like.
Yeah, exactly, and that I'm not abandoning her in her struggle. For her, and then we get into ultimately what we're coming to is what's going on in the mind of my child. That's ultimately what we need to do, and I will teach this in a program about mentalization. And this is I had an English teacher. He used to love Hamlet. Oh, it's so juicy. It's so juicy. This stuff is so juicy. It's mentalization, and it's the science and the psychology, literally science. If you don't believe psychology is a science. The science and the psychology behind human relationships, particularly the parent-child relationship, stepping into the mind of the child and mentalizing, feeling them as if you were them. Like stepping into their mind. It's not empathizing as much. It's called mentalizing. Yeah, I know. Are you shaking your head because you're like, I don't. That's.
No, it's because I've been there. She is me. She is me. Like.
Right.
And copy paste. So
Right.
It makes it harder.
It makes it harder it makes it harder for sure because she is me. And then when I see her, I feel all those feelings of her, but I'm feeling them for myself, for little Maor. And I can't separate what's going on for me from her. And it's really important that you know that. It's a struggle, but it's good that you know that. Were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say, when you say, how can I help you, it's instead of all the other things that could come out like.
Yeah. And it's a reminder to me that I'm here to help you. It's a reminder to me. It's a, how can I help you? That's my job, is to help you.
I don't usually wake you.
And our mind, okay, how can I help her? And I have to think of ideas, how can I help her? How can I help her? She feels abandoned by me. How can I help her? And I think, it doesn't help to say it's your fault, stop blaming me. It doesn't help to bring that emotion out onto her.
You have an alarm clock.
And then she regulates, and I can say, and then we can repair, we can work through it, and then we're in a learning state, and then we can talk about it and set boundaries, etc. Yes?
How do you make that shift in your mind from she's attacking me, she hates me, to, well, how can I help you, dear?
That's what we're doing. That's what we're starting to do. It is possible. It can take work. It can take work. It can take work to really identify. To name it. Honestly, probably about 2 years. If I could say about 2 years. But I'm a therapist, and first of all, I'm really psychologically minded. I have my own tools, and I go to therapy and supervision, and I work on it. It takes work. It took me 2 years. It doesn't take everyone 2 years. And I still have to, and developing the tools you need doesn't take a long time. Implement work, you have to work at it. You have to work it out. You have to tease it out. You tease it out. You tease it out. You keep, and it comes up until you feel just good enough. My encouragement is just so that I know that I'm good enough. Just so that until I can hear the thoughts in my head, the judgments in my head, and I can name them, and say I am good enough. I'm working on it. As when I feel that I love myself, that's the goal. That I love myself the way I should be loved. I accept myself the way I should be accepted. When I reach that, then it's downhill from there. So has everyone finished 3? I think I talked more than I gave you time to think about it. When I revisit and envision my kids' behavior, what am I thinking and what am I feeling? Particularly when they're behaving in this way or not acting. Is everyone good there? Yeah? Okay. So what did I do? What do I do when my kid does that? What do I do when I think when I think that and when I feel that? What I used to do was, and I'm just so you know, I slipped down that path. I went down that path. I took a hard left at one point, and I was like, this isn't my fault. Stop blaming me. This isn't my fault. And that's okay. It's okay that I took a hard left. This is a normal relationship, This is how relationships work. So I defended myself. That's what I did. I defend myself. At one point I was like, I'm out of here. I retreated. I escaped, which is what we do when we're threatened. Or we fight, or we flee, and sometimes we freeze. And that can take different forms. But that's what happens when we feel threatened. So take a moment and think, what do I do? And it can be in the specific scenario that you've outlined, or it can be, you can use it also as a symbolic of all moments of threat, In this case, she was blaming me. In another case, it could be a child not listening to me. No, I'm not going to do that. No, right? Everybody's like, get into bed. So just think, what did I say? What did I do? What am I doing? What am I saying to them? And it can be specific to the situation. It can be in general. Hey. You can help yourself to a pen and a worksheet. And what's your name? Oh, good. There are a lot of Ilanas here I just mentioned. And then, what's your last name?
Sobel.
Hi. I'm checking my memory.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were going to be late.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. I'm glad you're here. Yeah. So when let's start at the very beginning. Our brains are wired to protect us. And as human beings, as animals, our brains are wired to protect us, to stay safe, to procreate, to live, to survive. That's how our brains work. As humans, we have a neocortex, we have a mammalian brain, which allows us to actually connect. As mammals, we have a mammalian. As human beings, we have something called consciousness, which is an even higher level. We might call that the soul. We as humans are able, not just mammals, humans are able to think about the way we think. We can self-reflect in a way that other mammals can't. So we're quite advanced as a species. Having said that, in our early relationships, we are developing we are wired to develop in an environment in a way that there's a word, I can't find it. I'm going to describe it. Makes it possible, makes it... there's definitely adapting that happens. I can't find the word. It's really important. Maybe it has a P. This is like Wheel of Fortune. Anyways, so a child comes into the world, and this child is, and this is what I talk about mentalization, is taking information from the outside world and basically figuring out who they are. Not whether or not I'm safe, but who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who's this other person? Where am I? Initially, children are really egocentric. It's just them. They're just in their bodies with their pooping and their hunger and their, I'm cold, really, it's good. And then over time, as they develop, moves outward. The early experiences, particularly between 0 to 5, don't freak out, and beyond. But primarily 0 to 5, a child, we are learning, and I don't mean cognitive learning. I mean learning through experience about who we are and what we can expect from others and our place in the world. Now, having said that, how do we do that? Our brains work to process information from our environment and make meaning of it. So information comes in, and I have a reaction to it, a physiological reaction to it. That's what's called an emotion. It's in like a quarter of a second. It's like this. That can be called emotion. And like this, you'll have a reaction in your body. That's why, for example, I take this walk. I don't do it now, but I used to take this walk past this house, God. And they had this dog, and every time this dog jumps out from the fence, obscenities in the middle of the street. And it's just that quick, right? Because that's how I'm wired. I'm wired to stay safe. And that's a genetic wiring that we know. Loud noises are scary. It's also why trauma can have such a deep effect on a person, because of the deep wiring of that experience. This is a very long answer to your question. I apologize, but also you're welcome. And the idea is that we have immediate emotional reactions, that our brain makes meaning of it, and that's what we call a feeling word. The thoughts that are associated with it are the thoughts that we've learned to adapt to. So sometimes I've had this emotion, and then the thought I have is, I'm bad. It's because of me. This is happening because of me. This is in general. It's my fault. I'm the bad one. And that's why it's, I don't know if I answered your question. Let me pause before I continue. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I saw it a really different way, though.
What's that?
I saw it a really different way, though. It's more like, I kind of remember what it's like to be the child, and your parents saying one thing and I want another, and I'll sort of like relate to and identify with my child, and then I kind of feel the struggle like between know what I want and what I understand.
That's right.
they want.
That's right. Right. So in that struggle, so I separate what they want, and I can see it from their point of view, but I can also see it from my point of view. And there's that word again. I'm going to find it later. I'm going to email it to all of you. This is the word. I think I wrote it, used it a lot in my thesis, and forgot it all. That space where I am acknowledging what's happening for me, in that space, it's so important that I'm acknowledging, what am I feeling here? And not just what am I thinking about what I'm feeling. Oh, I'm really pissed. But to really feel pissed, to make space for it. It ameliorates the struggle. It helps me be more calm. It helps me be more present and attuned to them. And to make conscious choices. Okay, how am I going to handle this power struggle? How am I going to set a boundary here? How am I going to set the boundary here? And ultimately teach them about who they are and how the world works and prepare them for this life. Yes.
This naming, feeling, and then giving space to feeling it, maybe deeply, doesn't that, for me, it seems like that would require removing myself and time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always feel like that is even enough.
Possible. So that's where I would recommend that that I make time for that. It can be in therapy. It can be an ecstatic dance. It can be. No, that's not the time. You have to try, because otherwise you're going to lose your shit. But that I'm really struggling with it and I can't do it because it's just too big for me. Then I need to acknowledge that. I need to validate that. I need to make space for that and really make space that I need to figure that out and make space for that.
You're coming back to it.
Yeah. So that and this is what I do a lot of this work I do on my own so that I can be more present when I'm with my kids. Otherwise, I run the risk of, and I do sometimes, and you just wrap it up and you repair it.
I used to walk away, actually. I was lucky enough to have a partner that was there, so I would say, I'm taking a break now, and I'd go to my room or wherever, private space, and I would feel it, and I would hit the towel, or I would, do whatever it was so that it wasn't out at my kids, and then I would come back and I could be with them again. And it only took me 4 or 5 times that I actually had to physically remove myself before I could manage it in the moment. So
I also think it's important, to add to what you're saying, I think it's important to know for yourself if that's enough or if I need guidance. And this isn't a self-promo. I'm not promoting myself, I'm promoting the idea in general. We talk about self-care and let me take care of myself. Like you had asked, I had to own it. I had to say, I need help. I need help with this. This is too big for me. It's too big, it's too scary, and I need help. And yeah, sometimes it's enough to just and then I can hold it together, and then maybe that's enough, and that's amazing. But sometimes I need space to just actually make sense of it. And what a parent does is a parent helps a child organize their big emotions, give it names, because until it has a name, it's just this big explosion inside of me, and we all know what that feels like. It's too big, it's too scary. And we all react in different ways. Some people shut down. Some people get really aggressive. Some people run away and curl up in their beds. And that's all okay, but it's important that we realize what's happening here. This is big for me. I've never had this, I don't have this organized, and I need it to be organized. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I feel like there's this, when we talk about boundaries and all these things, for me, I think that there's a lot of situations where there's a dissonance, and it's not just obviously this needs to happen, and then this, and they're not seeing the rationale and how can I lead them towards the end goal, or how can I control my emotions enough to get through this. I feel like, at least for me, it's the kid has a point, and we have to get to God.
Right.
Because the gun, and it's
right.
so, but I want him to be 10 minutes late. I don't care.
Right.
And
right.
That's a really silly example, but
it's a great example.
He's really hungry. He's genuinely hungry, but
right.
it's 4 a.m.
Yep. 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 Right. Yep. Yep. Right. So let me pitch a little bit. I'm going to take the opportunity to pitch a little bit here. That in this program, that's what we talk about. How do I set these boundaries? How do I make a choice in the moment? Big emotions aside, once I've figured out how to tolerate those and manage them and understand them, now, like tachlis, like what do I do? Because on one hand, he's hungry, but on the other hand, it's 4 a.m. I get it. He doesn't want to go to gun. He wants to be home. I totally get that. But I got to go to work, and he's got to go to gun. And that's where the boundaries come in, and developing a sense of confidence in identifying them and executing them in a way that's solid, that is containing. Because ultimately, the boundaries we put on our kids are to give them a sense that they're safe. I got you. You may not like it in this moment, but I got you, and you can count on me. That I've got you. You've got someone in this world who's going to stand up and stand strong and not be all like my mom, God bless her, she was all like, that was scary. That makes the world a scary place. Like who's going to hold up the fort for me, On one hand, it's like, oh, lots of trust and this, but like you need also, in addition to the chesed and the giving and the freedom, you also need the gvura. You also need to rein it in for a sense of safety.
Just wanted to be clear, so you have that ugly feeling, you're saying that when you have that reaction, that's an ugly emotion, and then you blame yourself, whatever it is. So I'm saying what that next step, you're saying the next step is maybe it's just the feeling that comes, or you're saying the next step is maybe it's bigger and you go and work it out in a more involved session. I'm saying what's the...
What do I do?
No, I'm not saying what do you do. I'm just trying to get back to that. Like, there was a couple of things you said there that just what's after that? So, okay, I'm in a situation, my kid does whatever, I react, I say something crappy, and then I blame myself. So I'm saying, you're saying these are all basic.
Right. So the idea is ultimately is to separate truth from like reality from falsity. Like, what's the truth here? What's really going on here? And you've heard me say this. What's really going on here? What's really going on for my child? What's really going on for me? And then we go into like, what do I need? What do I need here? What does the child need here? Because we often in big emotions need containment. And we're not children anymore, unfortunately. We don't have parents to turn to for help to contain us. We have to do it for ourselves. So it's a matter of containment. Sometimes the containment is physical and literal. And actually I have to like hold myself, and sometimes it's asking another person for help. I need help. I need to talk about this. Sometimes it's bigger. I'm thinking about. I don't know if we should skip this. I think if I understood your question, it's different for everybody. It's different for everybody. And I think I want to acknowledge that while we're all filling out the same form, we're all different. We're all so unique. And I really do know this, that every single one of us is different. There are many similarities amongst us, which is so wonderful because we have a community and we have a closeness and we have support and validation that, I'm not alone. But we are individuals, and we all need individually we all need to have understanding about our own individual experiences. And that's ultimately what it's about, is understanding what's going on. So that I can ultimately accept it, that it's okay, I'm okay, and this is me. And this is who I really am. My kavana for Rosh Hashanah is I give myself permission this year to be myself, to be me. And that means figuring out who I am. I mean, that's what a parent is. A parent, I was saying before, right? You help your child figure out who they are. In the relationship, that's a space where they figure out who they are and who they're not, who they can be. And it's dynamic, it's moving, it's not just about you. There are bigger things here at work. But ultimately, I hope to give my children a sense of confidence in who they are. And I always say kind and content kids, that they should be kind to others and they should be happy with who they are. Because that's what I want. I want to be able to be kind to other people, and I want to be happy with who I am. And that is my kavan for the year, and that's ultimately what it's about. It's about knowing who I am, knowing who I'm not, being in reality, knowing who my kid is and who they're not, and accepting them. About nurturing acceptance in this relationship, because that's ultimately what is going to nurture your child's development. So what might have been happening in your environment or in your thoughts and feelings before your kid acted? And so it could be that, for example, this morning, like I was coming to do a workshop and there's a videographer coming and there's morning traffic and, you know, like I'm nervous. I'm nervous. So that's what's happening on the outside. On the inside, what's happening, like I'm noticing that I've done this before, so I feel less nervous. But when I think back to the first few times that I did these get-togethers, like it was intense. Like the physiological sensations in my body, the reaction to the stress in my brain was really intense. Like I couldn't eat in the morning, I couldn't sit still. Like wasn't sure, you know, if I would even be able to sit in a chair. I thought I'd need to stand to move the energy around, like to move the stress around, like. So it's not just what's happening around me, but what's happening on the inside. So for example, I just got a message from my husband. He's going to be late. Again. That's what's happening on the outside. On the inside, what's happening before I lose it is I feel abandoned. I feel unloved. I'm thinking you're never there for me. I'm thinking I can't count on you, right? And going back to those thoughts and the feelings and the emotions, and it's not cut and dry. It's not black and white. This is a thought, this is a feeling, this is an emotion. They move into each other. It's dynamic. They move one into the other, but just knowing that. And so you can take a moment and think about it. This in general is a guide for any breakdown you have to take with you and reflect after the moment, after the fact. And was that yours? I think you might have been asking, like, what do you do with this? Also, Ariel, you were asking, like, what do you do with this? Like, you keep doing this. You just keep doing this. You keep asking yourself, what happened? What did my kid do? What did I feel when they were doing it? What was I thinking when they were doing it? What happened right before? What was really going on? And it's not about conclusions, solutions. It's about awareness. It's about just knowing what's coming up and giving space for what is, and so I can separate what's my kids and what's mine, so I can make a conscious choice, set a good boundary, a solid boundary. Yeah?
When you're in the moment, there's sometimes when you're in a struggle with your kid and you have like this realization, like, should I just give in? Is it worth it at this point to just give in? And then the question becomes, like, is it about teaching her that, like, no, she can't win right now? Or is it about diffusing the situation? And at what point, like, I have this struggle with myself all the time because there are times where I'm like, this is stupid. Like, I'm just doing it now in principle because I want to teach her, like, a lesson. And when is that worth it and when is it not worth it?
I'll tell you what I tell myself. There are 2 or 3 things here I want to say. One is, I'm saying it on principle for myself. Am I motivated by anger? Am I trying to teach her a lesson? Or am I trying to teach her a lesson? And if I'm trying to teach her a lesson, what is that lesson? And is that lesson at the expense of something else? And ultimately, I have to make a choice. And it's guided by my values. I have a 4.5-year-old. He's so cute. I love him. He's my little prince. I could just, you know, he's like what people call the golden child, you know? Like, I could just give him the world. I could fall into that trap and be like my little boy. And then my daughters will be like, my mother loved our brother so much. And, you know, I don't know if any of you, I don't have brothers, but I've heard this from people. My brother was loved more than me as a boy. And I'm cautious that, no, everyone's cleaning up here, you're cleaning up too. You're 4.5. He's capable. He's more than capable. He's like, I'll show you pictures, like works with, my husband's a landscaper. And he's like in the garden, like he's very capable. And I stick with it, you clean up. I could totally give up. I don't care, I love him so much. You know? And whatever. But no, I'm going to stick to this because the value ultimately, and I think on the big picture, is that I want you to know that you are expected, you are part of this family. You're expected, you're not special, you know. You are special, of course you're special, but everyone's special, and everyone's helping and you're helping too. And not only am I telling him that, but the children who are watching are learning a value, that everybody counts and everybody matters. And so, I mean, we work through this in the boundaries section of the program when we talk about boundaries, when we talk about discipline. You know, and we workshop it, like how, for ourselves individually, you know, what do I value, what's important to me, taking into consideration what my needs are, what my child's needs are, the power struggle, concessions, and all that. It's a good question. Okay, so the last question, and this is important. And I think, and we're ending on this question, though we'll pause. I'll tell you a little bit more about the program, and we'll make room for questions. How would I like to react differently next time? And this is about tshuva. This is about, you can call it tshuva, you can call it repair. I call it repair, but I feel like it's apropos to think about. This is about making amends and figuring out, who do I want to be? What kind of mother do I want to be? And also noticing any resistance that I have. Resistance. So that part of me, pardon me?
What did you say? Noticing the resistance?
Yeah, noticing the resistance, and also considering, I'm making up a word, the realisticness, how realistic it is, the expectations I have of myself. This is also an opportunity to look at the expectations of myself and to make space for imperfection, to make space for error, and to find acceptance for myself in spite of it. So we're doing a lot with this question. Begadol, in general, well, how would I like to act differently? And I'm thinking for myself, how would I like to have acted differently? For me, I don't think it was about acting differently. It was about that I would have liked to have, if I were going to push myself, I would say, Chaya Sarah, you've been in her mind. You've been in her mind. You know her mind. You know what this is about for her. And it's not about you, Liba. It's not about you. To be more, I say calmer, but that's in the reaction is calmer, but in feeling more loving towards her. I would like to have felt more loving towards her, not as like, ugh. But I'm forgiving of that because I'm giving a workshop this morning. Like, girl, you do not know what's happening in mommy's life. And she's not. That's not a problem. So I have to contain that. But I'm forgiving of myself, and also it's okay. It's okay, and also realistic. I don't think I could have done any better. I don't think I could have, and that's okay too. It's okay to just be happy with where you are, It's okay to be, this is good. It's okay to feel proud of yourself. It's okay to, celebrate your wins. I think I'm going to bring that back into the Facebook group. Celebrating wins. So has everyone had a chance to write that out? You guys need more time? No? So I want to open for questions and comments and reflecting and discussion. But I want to take an opportunity just to do two things. First, I want to acknowledge for you, to let you know that on one hand, this exercise I don't know how you're experiencing this exercise, but this exercise is an opening exercise. It's an exercise to open your awareness, to start reflecting, to exercise your self-reflection, because that's what we need to exercise in order to come to awareness so that we can be conscious in our choices. More than that, in awareness, we can connect with our kids' minds and their experiences. And again, make conscious choices with them in mind. I want to speak quickly about this program that I'm running. I have you all together. I wrote a little blurb, but I'm not going to read it because it just feels too inauthentic to me. But I will tell you that I'm running a program. It starts the 18th of November. And the program runs for 12 weeks. It's a 12-week program. We meet weekly, consecutively, except for like a week or two for Hanukkah, at this time. The point of the program is to give you an opportunity to really work through this. This is like the skeleton of it, and where we tease this all out. We tease it all out so that we can feel calmer, right? Going back to those 4 basic premises of parenting, we can feel calmer. We can know what to do, you know, when we feel like we're going crazy. We can tolerate our own emotions and our children's. We can set boundaries at work and know what to discipline, how, when, and really connect with our children. Each week, we're going to meet for an hour and a half. There'll be a teaching element, and there'll be a workshop element where we actually work through some skills. Ultimately, you're developing your skills, your skill set, to come to a place where you can be more self-aware. It's also a group, so it's a space where we can get support from one another. And in my experience of running groups and workshops, Neely's been a part of them, everyone has said how much they've gained from just being in a group. So aside from the guidance and the content itself, being in a group of women and having that support for 12 weeks has been in and of itself of so much value. So I'm going to send out an email because I don't want to digress from this space here. I'm going to send an email and I'll give you information about it. So having said that, if you have any questions now, I want to ask you guys about where you're at now, how you have found this exercise, what thoughts are coming up for you, maybe some feelings, if any realizations, any questions, any frustrations. Yes.
This might be more of just like thought and reflection than a question, but I'm thinking about whoever asked about how long does this work take, and you said like it took me 2 years, and I've been doing this work many more years than that, and I think it's based on where you come from and many other things, but like how much support did you get as a kid, or what did you get as a kid? And my thought and my like, it's not really like an issue, but just like I'm trying to be aware for myself that it's really hard to do this work, like heal the inner child and support your children at the same time. And each one needs like separate space kind of, and there's an element of like being a selfish parent, feeling like a selfish parent, like, oh, I'm also narcissistic, like that kind of thing. And I'm just I guess I'm just saying for myself, like, give yourself time and space, it's worth it. You don't have to be doing this all the time right now for your kids. You need to do it for yourself first. Hear what I'm saying? Looks like yes.
I hear everything you're saying. I'm hearing your despair, and I'm hearing your commitment, and I'm hearing your loneliness in it, and I'm also hearing hope, like hope that if I stick with this, it's going to be okay, and I'm doing what I can do, and that's more than was given to me. So I'm trying, and I think that says a lot. I think showing up today, when you guys came, and I thank you for coming. I thank you also on behalf of your children. Thank you for coming. Thank you for caring enough to take time to show up. And I don't know if it was Jordan Peterson who said this, but or it was a show on Netflix, but just show up. Like 80% of parenting is just showing up. And 70% of statistics are made up. So just show up. Just showing up. And I'll tell you, my mother, for all of her flaws that we used to do, I went to this labor Zionist school where we had, every class did a play every year. So you're always at a play. And, like a kibbutz kind of thing. And she would come to the plays. And I'll never forget that. She would show up to the play. And I would never stay home. Like, I didn't stay home with her. I went to my grandmother's. And, she showed up to the plays. Just show up. Just show up. And just trying, and being here, it means a lot to your children. It means a lot to your children.
So I guess like this is like just a thought. I don't know if it's really a question. It's partially a question. Like with this whole process, like I guess what I'm struggling with is where does the boundary setting or the teaching moment come in while you're doing all of this? Like meaning, like you've recognized the emotion that's come up for you, you've contained it, you've paused, you've this, that, but somewhere in that there's like an action that your child did, and even though you've understood where they're coming from and you all of that, right? But somewhere like, let's say they've like hurt a sibling, right? So where in that progression of I've understood, I've contained my own reactions, I've this and I've that, but like at what stage is the, yeah, but you really still can't.
Right.
Can't
Yeah.
hit, bite,
Right.
pinch,
Right.
pull, whatever.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah. They're called rules. And they're not rules that I'm going to tell my kids to follow. They're rules that I have for myself. I will not tolerate this. This is my red line. Like I have red lines, and I've worked through this. I realized, whoa, I do have red lines. Really do have red lines. This is a red line for me. This is a red line.
but like where, I guess it's like, so let's say it is a red line, but yet there's so much more to that picture because you know the emotions and the surrounding situations and all the things that that kid is feeling. So where do you
So you have a boundary. You have a boundary, and you implement it. You have a boundary, and you implement it. Is your question, how do I figure out what my boundary is? How do I implement it?
I guess it's more like when that child obviously still needs, like either it's coming from a place like that they're feeling not loved or they're feeling not paid attention to or they're feeling, right? So you're implementing the boundary, but that's just reinforcing the overall feeling of you like my sibling better or, you know, like that.
So there are two things. There are two things, and there's something we do. There's a way to respond. Now, I just like premise and say, if you know, I'm giving a general thing.
Yeah.
There's a way we respond in a moment of heightened tension and heightened arousal. It's called emotional arousal, right? Like when my survival mechanisms are activated, I'm going to respond. So kicking, yelling, screaming, not yelling and screaming, that's fine by me, but hurting people, disrespect, and we define what disrespect means. Like saying F you to your mother, no, absolutely not. And I know that because I've figured out, like, what are my boundaries, I figured out my values, I've worked through that, like, why is that? And I'll stand by that. She's 12, okay? Go to your room. A 2-year-old is different. Because a 2-year-old is, you respond to 0 to 5 is different than 6 plus, 6, 7 even, but already 8 and above is a little different because they have a stronger sense of who they are. They don't depend on you as much. They're not as, the relationship to you is, there's more separation. They have more sense of themselves. Their sense of self isn't dependent on who you are, for better or worse. So she goes, you go in your room, go to your room. And afterwards, when things are calm, I'm calmer, she's calmer, we talk about it. And she'll come, I'm really sorry. What's going on for you? What's going on? What's this about? And then I can actually say to her, you're so bored. You're so bored. Let's do something about it. How can I help you? Like, you want to, go to a friend's or something? Because then I realize what's really going on for her. Why is she saying F you to her mother? What's really going on? It's not me. I'm not the bad guy. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's sort of like there's a chain of events that happens, and at some point you have to step in and be the parent and put a boundary, what's okay and what's not. And if I'm struggling, it's because, one, I'm not clear on my boundaries, I'm not clear on my values, I'm scared I'm going to hurt my kid. A lot of times I'm scared I'm going to hurt them, or they're going to hurt me emotionally. If I'm scared I'm going to hurt them physically, that sometimes makes it easier to put a boundary. But if I'm, when I'm scared I'm going to hurt them emotionally, I sometimes pull back. And that's basically saying they're fragile. You're too fragile for boundaries. And the message there is you're fragile, and the world is going to hurt you, and I'm going to hurt you, which is not the message we want to convey. The message we want to convey is I'm here to take care of you and protect you, and boundaries keep you safe, and you can handle it. You can handle this boundary. And I'll be here with you. It's not a punishment, it's a boundary. It's two different things. Yes?
So my kids are younger,
Yeah.
2 and 4.
Mm.
And a lot of what you talked about is using words. And especially with my younger one, he's not really ready
Verbal.
for verbal.
Mm.
And I can tell him so or no, but like that's kind of where it is. And I feel like with my older kid, because I'm so used to being very physical, if it's just picking them up and removing them from the thing that's dangerous, or if they're hitting or whatever it is, I'm trying really to step out of the physical and move into words, and I'm finding that very difficult. Like my husband's very good at speaking to my older son and saying, don't do that, or like really articulating what's going on, and I'm still very much like, okay, he's about to run into the street. I understand he's 4, but he's still about to run into the street. And my first reaction is always run, clear, then talk. And I'm curious how to kind of, I guess part of it is letting go and trusting them more in listening, but I know they're not. And that's always scary for me.
So that's a really good question, because it brings up, one, anxiety and fear as a mother, which is mine. And it also brings up a really important topic about, and this is the premise of attachment, which is ultimately trusting you said trusting my kid. I need to trust them. And so on an emotional level, before I reach and grab, and you can do this in your mind, like you can do the grabbing movement and feel in your body like the anxiety, and understand that. I think there's space to understand what's going on for me. What am I scared of? What do I imagine happening? Go down that very scary road, really dark road of what do I imagine happening. Going there, go to the loss, go to the fear, go there, because that's holding you back from being in the moment of what's really going on, and seeing your kids, stepping into their mind and seeing their ability, seeing their capability, trusting them. And my son has really highly developed gross motor skills. And so when he was like, I don't know, a month old, he was like climbing the jungle gyms. And people were like, oh my God. And a lot of moms in the park are like, wow, how do you let him do that? I'm like, because he can. And I know he'll be fine. I said, I'm pooping myself. Don't get me wrong, but I know he can. And I also ask myself, what's the worst that's going to happen? This is a little CBT. What's the worst that's going to happen? And what's the chance of it happening? And on one hand, being a mother, staying safe, I'm not mivateret.
Giving in.
Yeah, sacrifice, or giving in keeping my children safe. There are yesh gvulot, there are boundaries here. But making sure that my anxiety and my fears of what the bad things that could happen, where I've been before, I don't want to go there again, might happen, and not making that the reality, because that's not the reality. And understanding what's really going on so that they can feel that they're safe and they're capable, and that they don't have to have that fear. Sorry, I'll come back to you. Yes?
What about having different parenting styles than your husband or partner or whoever? Sometimes, I read an article somewhere saying it's good, it's okay, it's healthy to have different parenting styles or whatever, but sometimes they might be consistent. So if discipline is happening a different way, or like I'm the same, like I'm into the physically removing from the situation and then talking about it, as opposed to my husband who's like wants to talk it through. I'm like, yes, but she's still spilling the water. It's still coming out. We're still making a mess. Let's just stop the mess and then we'll talk. It's too,
Right,
much,
right.
Just the idea of there's times we're not parenting the same way.
For sure. So 2 thoughts that come to my mind when you say that. The first is, I need to know that I've got my stuff in order before I expect him to be any different. Because if I'm asking my partner to, am I trying to get him to do this because I feel out of control? I feel out of control control is safety, security, not scared, right? So I have to take ownership of that. Like, what happens for me when the water's spilling everywhere? What's the big deal for me? What's that about for me? I have to reflect on that. I also have to, and I'm shaking my head here because it's so important. We also have to, we have to rumble with this. We have to talk about it. We have to date night, so to speak, quote unquote. Like, remember when you met your partner? Are we all co-parenting here? Any single moms? Single mom? Okay. So you're on your own raising your kids? Okay. So, for if you're co-parenting, you're on a team. You're not doing it on your own. You're on a team. And that means you need to sit when you dated and say, what do you think? What do you think? Well, here's what I think. And talk about it and communicate. And that communication is really important because when you are in the moment and now suddenly your kid spilling the water creates a conflict between parents. Like, I didn't know spilling water could have such a horrible I didn't know that spilling water I could do such harm, Kilo. I could have this effect. So the conflict between me and my partner, it's really important that we get that under wraps and that we take responsibility for that as co-parents. I'm trying to think, and I think it's harder. I think it's more challenging. But if you're co-parenting with someone who you're not married to anymore, it's also important for kids.
Let's say the same situation happens 2 different times, and one time I'm dealing with a lot of time, my husband is.
That's okay.
Dealing with it in a different way.
It's fine.
Won't.
Depends what it is. Depends what it is, because it's not about, oh, he's calmer when she spills the water and I freak out when she spills the water. That's okay. If we're talking about values, and this came up with a daughter with modesty. I was like, I don't care if she wears a skirt. I don't really care. And we had to talk about that. We had to unpack that, and we had to talk, and it opened up a world of, what's it like to be a woman? Do you know what it's like to be a woman in this world? My husband's Gilad. Do you know what it's like to be a woman in this world? And talking about body image and talking about being a woman. And here we are in El Halev. Look at this wall. That I don't, why, what's the value we're teaching here? And we need to talk about these values. So if it's about a value, then we need to talk about that, and it needs to be clear. And we need to take that to date night or whatever. I know, we don't go on date night. We swing on the hammock in the backyard. We don't go anywhere. Date night. Yes, does anyone have any other questions or comments? So I want you to take a moment now as we wrap up and think about, I'm going to ask myself, what am I taking from today? If I had to wrap this up, or take this question with you, okay? No, you go. But ask yourself, what am I taking with me today? And you'll go down the hall, you'll get in the elevator and think, what am I taking with me today? What am I taking away with me? Is it, this was a waste of time and I should never go to these things ever again? Is it, you can go. Bye, thanks for coming. Is it, is it a certain awareness about something? Is it a need that I have that needs to be fulfilled? Is it a sense of pride? Oh, I'm really proud of myself. Am I proud that I showed up? Take a moment and just as to conclude the exercise for yourself in this journey, what am I taking with me? Don't overlook this. It's an important part to integrate the experience today, whatever it was for you, whatever it was, to close it. And I would encourage you to write it. Why? Because when we write things, we process them. It gives our brains gives our brain an ability to process in a way that we don't process if we're not writing. If you journal, you'll know what I mean. It makes it real. On that note, I want to ask, you're under no obligation, but if there's anybody who would like to speak to the camera and give a testimonial about today, you know, how was it? What'd you think? I don't know. I think Asaf might interview you. If you're willing to, let me know. I'd appreciate it. If not, it's fine too. You're not obligated to. But if you would be willing to give a few words about what the workshop was like for you today, I'd appreciate it. So just let me know. If you want to know more about the program, be in touch with me. If you have any questions about anything, be in touch with me.